All right, y'all. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus. J is on right now. We appreciate everybody that's listening to us in our social media avenues. Those folks listening to us live on our website. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio. We're on TuneIn as well as MixLR. Unfortunately, we don't have the crew tonight. We've got inclement weather here in the Richmond, Virginia area, so we were unable to get to the studio and pull everybody together. However, you do have yours truly here for a What the Hell segment. There are a few things out there that I definitely want to get my opinion out about, so I'll be sharing some stuff here momentarily. I also have a missing child, because just because we're not there doesn't mean that we want to keep our eyes open for any missing children. This week marks the 1-year anniversary of Legacy Internet Radio. On Monday, March 4, 2013, we launched Legacy Internet Radio live from Big Rube's apartment. Yes, you heard us right. We were in his kitchen. Big Rube, Carlton Banks, Jay Grizzy, and we had a special guest by the name of Aaron Turner, the Aaron Turner Show, who joined us. And you will hear that show in its entirety momentarily. However, before we get to that, there are a few things that, as I mentioned, that I wanted to make sure that my opinion got out so that you folks would know, because I know I spoke with some folks this week in social media. Definitely did not want to let this moment get away without getting some comments in. Normally, we do a segment called What the Hell, where we kind of have some stories out there that make us all say what the hell. Of course, this week is no different. First thing I want to get to, the story that just never seems to go away, and this is the Marissa Alexander story down in Florida. This is the woman who was sentenced to 20 years in prison during her first trial, where she fired the warning shot to get the abusive ex-husband away from her. We know that she was released on bail pending a new trial last fall, and now they're looking to put this woman in jail for 60 years. The Office of State Attorney Angela Corey is looking at 60 years, basically a life sentence for a 33-year-old woman. She was previously convicted in 2012 on 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and was sentenced to 20 years in prison by Circuit Judge James Daniel under the state's 10 to 20 life law. He actually imposed 3 separate 20-year sentences on Alexander, but ordered that they be served concurrently, which meant that she would get 20 years. Now, the conviction was thrown out after the First District Court of Appeal in Tallahassee ruled that Daniel made a mistake in shifting the burden to Alexander to prove she was acting in self-defense. During jury instructions, Daniel said that she must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was battered by her husband. Now, I don't understand why we have to prove that when the abusive husband has already admitted that he was abusive to her. He beat her. He was there in the house, chasing her down the house. We talked about this a lot, since this case first came up back in 2012. I won't spend a lot of time on this one, but what I will say is this. When you live in Florida and you see, well, not even if you live in Florida, if you see what goes on in Florida, you see the cases of Stand Your Ground. You see the case of George Zimmerman, you see the case of Mike Dunn, and then you see this case of Melissa Alexander, basically being run through the exact same state court. I have a difficult time understanding how you can come upon a young boy and basically initiate contact and be found to be not guilty, or which, of course, in the Zimmerman case or in the Dunn case, to be hung up in a hung jury because they can't decide, which basically means you had some people who did not see that this guy was guilty. But then you had 12 hopefully reasonable people who would see a woman that's barely postpartum in her own home, and she is being pursued by a man who is obviously out to hurt her and find her guilty. We've talked about this before, and I really don't know what else to say on it, because it's troubling. Obviously, it's unimaginable that a woman acting in self-defense who injured no one can be given what amounts to a life sentence. This is what a Free Marissa Now spokesperson by the name of Helen Gilbert said. This must send chills down the spine of every woman and everyone who cares about women and every woman in an abusive relationship. And that's another quote. Not just women, just people in general. How you could be in your own home and someone come into your home and try to harm you, and you get charged with attempted murder for them, and you end up in jail basically for the rest of your life, when in the same state you've got people who utilize the exact same state law, which is the stand your ground law, and they get to go home. And it's just, you know, people like to say that we play the race card here on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'm sure that if you took the time, you could find some cases out there that maybe you can dispute this being about race, but I have a difficult time understanding how anybody could look at this case and see that this woman deserves to spend the rest of her life in prison. I'll just leave it there. Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. Another case that seems to be kind of making its rounds around the internet, I'm getting this one from theexaminer.com, is about two children in New York, they're 5-year-olds who were caught having sex in a bathroom. You heard me right. Two 5-year-old kindergarten students in the New Jersey elementary school admitted that they, quote, had sex, end quote, in a classroom bathroom. The teacher was a 15-year-old veteran administrator by the name of Kelly Mascio. Of course, she's been suspended. The incident happened back in September in a place called Mullica Township in New Jersey. They haven't filed any criminal charges or anything yet, but according to the police report, she found the two kids, a boy and a girl, naked in her in-classroom bathroom, and those kids admitted that they were having sex. Now, in her defense, she immediately reported it to her boss, the principal, who in turn called the police, end quote. Now, you've got a lot of people that are wanting to put blame on the teacher, and trust me, I don't think that she is in any way free of guilt and obligation here. However, when you have children of that age, even knowing what sex is, there's got to be something going on at home. One of those two children was the aggressor who pretty much talked the other one into it, or maybe they were both into it. I don't know. It's one of those situations where there's a lot of innocence here, a lot of curiosity here at 5 years old. You know, obviously, I find it difficult to believe that they actually did have sex, even though whatever it was they were doing in their 5-year-old minds, they thought that they were actually having sex. But, you know, I think that there needs to be some blame placed upon the parents here and not just on the teachers, because, you know, for the kids to go to school with that level of curiosity, there's something missing at home with regards to what's being taught. And there needs to be some sort of idea about private parts and what should be remaining private and what should not and what's appropriate. I think at 5 years old, you know the difference between, you know, a good touch and a bad touch. At least you should. And at 5 years old, anybody touching you, you know, other than your parent helping you to bathe or helping you to get dressed, or an adult that you trust or something like that, should always be thought of as a bad touch. And in this particular case, I think the parents failed. I also think the teacher failed here, because I get that she's a much beloved teacher, and there's a rally that took place in the area on her behalf, you know, because they didn't want to see anything negative happen to the teacher here. But, you know, she basically lost two kids at one time. Two kids on her charge were not in front of her. You know, one might go to the bathroom, but two at the same time of opposite sex. I think she dropped the ball here, and there needs to be some sort of discipline for her as well, because, you know, anything could have happened. One of those children could have physically harmed the other one, and obviously, you know, you have some that'll believe that 5-year-olds having sex is definitely harm. I disagreed with that, because I can't imagine two 5-year-olds having sex, but, you know, she dropped the ball. She lost two kids at one time. She needs to get punished. Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. At this time, I want to go ahead and do the missing child. I've got two more stories that I do want to get to before I defer to the replay of the inaugural show, since today marks the 1-year anniversary. Actually, tomorrow, March 4th, marks the 1-year anniversary of Legacy Internet Radio. We started off here on Legacy Internet Radio. The inaugural show was the only show on the website at the time, which is what you're listening to, Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. In that show, you will hear how we got the name The Den. You will learn where that came from. You'll also hear us discussing the top 10 NBA players of all in the league right now. We talked about some what the hell. We had some interesting commentary about Dennis Rodman. We got into a lot of stuff on that first show. I'll share some more teaser as we progress. But at this time, I want to profile a missing and/or exploited child, as we do every single week. This week, the child is Shenard Wilson. Shenard Wilson is a black male. He stands 5'6", 100 pounds. He's been missing since February 27, 2014, from Norfolk, Virginia. He's 13 years old. He's got black hair and hazel eyes. He was last seen once again on February 27th wearing a green shirt, black pants, a white coat, and black jeans. If you have seen Shenard Wilson, please contact the National Center for Missing and/or Exploited Children on their website, missingkids.com, or contact them by phone at 1-800-LOST, 1-800-843-5678, or contact your local authorities. Please help to bring home young Shenard Wilson. Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. Now, the next story that I want to talk about, this one is interesting. This one's about Spike Lee, who has been talking a lot about gentrification in his Brooklyn neighborhood where he lives, and he had some issues. What I'll do here is kind of address some of the things that he said. It was full of expletives, and I won't quote him verbatim just because we don't use some of the words that he used in his rant here on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. But the spirit of what he was saying, I'm getting this one from news1.com, the spirit of what he was saying I'd like to address. He's obviously a longtime resident and an outspoken critic of the whitewashing of his beloved Brooklyn. He went on an epic expletive rant saying, quote, "Here's the thing, I grew up in Fort Greene. I grew up here in New York. It changed. And why does it take an influx of white New Yorkers in the South Bronx and Harlem and Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights for the facilities to get better? The garbage wasn't picked up every MF day. When I was living at 165 Washington Park, PS 20 was not good, PS 11, Rothschild 294, the police were not around. When you see white mothers pushing their babies in strollers 3 o'clock in the morning on 125th Street, that must tell you something. Then comes the MF Christopher Columbus syndrome. You can't discover this. We've been here. You can't come and Bogart. There were brothers playing MF African drums in Mount Morris for 40 years, and now they can't do it anymore because the new inhabitant said the drums are loud." End quote. That last piece he's alluding to is his dad, who is a musician, playing his music in his home, and apparently there had been quite a bit of complaining to the police about noise from the newer residents. Here's what I'll say about what Spike said. I think anytime you start off your rant using the kind of language that he was using here, you kind of lose the credibility. A lot of the people who are listening to you, a lot of your audience isn't going to receive it well just because people don't speak the language of profanity. Well, some don't, a lot don't. However, there is some merit to what he was saying, in my opinion, simply because if you're from there, you get to have an opinion whether you're still there or not. I run into that a lot sometimes. Being from Jersey City, just because I don't live there anymore doesn't mean I don't have an opinion about it. It's not where my heart is. It's not where my home is. It's not where I grew up. So if this is how he feels and this is what he's seen and this is what he's observed, who are we as critics to have a problem with it, especially if it's something that's based in fact? If you lived in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, in South Bronx, in Harlem, in Bed-Stuy, in Crown Heights, and you saw the kind of poverty and you saw the kind of, poor neighborhoods and poor schools and things of that sort that you have an issue with, and then you see now where there's a different clientele of people living there, that clientele living with a different hue to their skin, I think the logical response would be to see if, particularly now with the way New York City is being run, is it a matter of this gentrification? Some would say it's about money. Not necessarily about color, especially when we live in a time where there are some who believe that the new racism is classism. There may be some truth to that. The rich people get what they need, and the poor people don't. The richer get richer, and the poor get poorer. But I think that if we are to attack someone who comes from some place who has what they believe to be an honest opinion about it, and we attack them, I think that's a bit disingenuous. I think the only people who really are in a position to challenge him directly are the people who are directly from that neighborhood, who have been there long enough, as long as he's had a direct connect to that neighborhood. And those folks who, if they choose to directly disagree with him and attack him on those statements, then that would be one thing. But I think someone who is not from there, who does not live there, who wants to attack the spirit of what he's saying because he's saying it and because it's Spike who's known for saying incendiary things, I think that's quite disingenuous. And I think that oftentimes happens when you get people like Spike, who says a lot of things. Again, as I mentioned earlier, when you use certain kinds of language, you can potentially lose a little bit of the credibility for what you're actually saying, but it doesn't mean that what you're saying doesn't come with a whole lot of merit. I'll leave it there. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. The last thing I want to get into, may spend a little bit of time on this one, because I had a post on Facebook today. Actually went up over the weekend, and we had quite a bit of spirited conversation with regards to it. I'm going to read some of the comments of some of the people that commented on here, as well as offer my own opinion as to the thought as to what actually is going on here. And if you would just bear with me a minute, I'm pulling it up, and that's the reason why I'm kind of hesitating just a bit, but I do have it here in front of me now. This I've gotten from atoasttowealth.com. atoasttowealth.com. It's about the third pastoral anniversary of Pastor Aaron B. Jones Wade, which this particular gentleman heads a gay church. You heard that correctly. The pastor of Community Church of Washington, D.C., United Church of Christ, Reverend Aaron Jones Wade, and First Gentleman Job Jones Wade are celebrating their third pastoral anniversary. And the article continues, "We never knew there were so many gay couples who run churches, but we have learned that the black community has opened up even more to United Church of Christ because of their liberal views. For those who want to live a life of homosexuality in the black community, find this denomination accepting, and this is why we have and we will see more black gays running churches." Yes, you heard that right. You've got a black man and his gay partner, or his husband, or his partner. It doesn't allude to if they are in a marriage or civil union. It clearly states that they're a couple because they call him First Gentleman. They run a church, and this is their third anniversary of actually running the church. Now, when I posted this, I had a few people who, and I'll just call these folks by their first names if they're listening. Great, they can continue to comment. I do think that we'll probably talk about this a little bit more on the air next week when we return to the studio live from the Den of Legacy Internet Radio about this. But just a couple of the comments that we were getting. Preston says that confused black men that succumb to a European perversion in religion. This is brainwashed to the highest degree. Mel says much prayer is needed in the last and evil days. Dwight says a lot. I won't get into the entire quote, but I don't want to misrepresent his statement because he has a lot, and other folks did as well. But he starts off by saying that he's a minister of the gospel for over 20 years, and he doesn't feel that it has an impact on other churches because each church is governed with their own constitution and bylaws and do not have to change their stance or accept same-sex marriages due to their respective bylaws governing the church. Simply put, they can do their thing over at their church, and others can continue worshiping at their church. Whether or not you agree with same-sex marriages, they are protected by law and are well-organized politically. Always have been. He's always been taught to choose his fights carefully, and this is not a fight that he's going to jump into. It's not destroying his family's worship of God, so he won't say any more. At that point, Melanie jumped in and stated that this is destroying the black community as a whole. Depopulation is not just about food. It's the whole thing. And when people can't see that, Melanie has an issue with that because you're not looking at the bigger picture. I think she's alluding to Dwight. It's been a goal of America to effeminize black men. President Obama and other foreigners had taken their aid away from certain African countries, all because they wouldn't sign the gay agenda and instead signed an anti-gay. A lot of black pastors here in America that were for it got paid off by the White House, and she's employing folks to wake up. Mo jumps in. Mo says that to Dwight, as a brother of the cloth, to absolve his responsibility to keep quiet and to not fight and to speak the truth is exactly what we need. Is exactly what we don't need is men taking a stance on something that's unpopular and is having devastating impacts on the black community. Obviously, you chose to ignore the issue and don't think one for a second. Aggressive pushing of the homosexual agenda and white supremacy excludes you and your church, end quote. And they went back and forth. I encourage anybody who is listening to us now on what I will call a podcast, because that's kind of what it feels like I'm doing now. Go back, look at the post that I have on my wall. If you're not on my wall, then unfortunately you won't have access to it. But if you are a friend of mine, Marcus J., you can certainly see this post. Here's what I'll say about the gay pastors. I had this discussion. I said that I wouldn't get into it on the post. I wanted to save my comments for here live. Anybody that knows me knows that I absolutely will support anybody's right to be who they are, how they choose to be, whether that be a gay person, a straight person, whatever it is you may be. I absolutely 100% support your right to be an individual. That does not mean that I have to agree with it. I don't agree with homosexuality, and that's just a fact. I don't. But I'm not going to be the person that's going to treat you any different. I'm not going to be the person that's going to lead a persecution against you. I do find it, however, curious that a black man who is gay leads a congregation as a pastor of a church. I am not a Christian, but what I know, I was raised one, and I went to a Baptist college, Virginia Union University, and what I know about the Christian faith is that it's not something that they smile upon, meaning I've seen churches try to remove homosexuals from their churches. And so I don't know the demographics of this church. I'd be curious to know what they are. I don't know if it's a church that is populated by a majority of gay men and women. I don't know if there are heterosexual people in this church. It's not for me to judge whether these people are doing the right thing by leading a church. It's one of those things where I don't like personally to use the word faith, because as an agnostic, I choose not to have one. But as someone who understands the great architect of the universe and understands the fact that you are not in power of what someone else is doing, I have a hard time believing, even if I was a Christian, that the God that I would be praying to would be so punishing and to be so ruthless and to be so, I don't know if the word I'm looking for, but vindictive maybe, as to punish me and not forgive me for my sins. Isn't that what being a Christian is all about? So while I don't agree with the lifestyle, I 100% would support anybody. I have friends that are gay. I love them. They love me. I would never, under any circumstances, treat them differently. But I also understand that there is a boom of homosexuality in our world today. And I'm curious to know where that's coming from, because I wonder if it's always been there. I mean, we know that the founding fathers of this country had a whole lot of homosexuality. You can look at the pictures. You can read some of the writings. Homosexuality is not anything that's new. But the fact that they have such a powerful lobby, to me is somewhat troubling, especially when they try to compare their plight to the plight of the black man of this country. You can't walk into any building and have someone know you're homosexual if you choose to hide that. But as soon as I walk into any building, they're going to know I'm a black man, and if they choose to treat me differently based upon that, then they can. That for that reason alone, it is not the same. So I am offended when I hear homosexuals, whether they're black men, white men, or whatever they are, liken their plight to the civil rights movement, because it is absolutely not the same. I saw a T-shirt a week ago that said, "Gay is the new black. Unless you're actually black, then you're just an N-word." And I was unsure if I was offended by that or infuriated by that. I knew I had a reaction to it, but I didn't know really how to respond to that, because I wasn't even sure if the person was wearing that shirt in jest. But it speaks to the mindset, and I think those of us who are heterosexual need to be mindful. We need to be aware, and we need to stand up, particularly heterosexual black men, and take back our neighborhoods, take back our communities, and determine and decide which fight is the fight that is most important to us. I don't know that I need to be worrying about homosexuals. Let them do what they're going to do. I'm not interested in trying to change them. I'm not interested in trying to determine if they were born gay or if they decided to be gay. None of that is my fight. There's some people that want us to fight every particular battle. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm interested in determining what my part in the overall fight is, because, trust me, there are going to be plenty of people out there that are going to want to fight all the time, and there's enough out there for everybody to get a piece of the fight pie. And you know how Steppin Marcus J. I will absolutely leave it there, but I will end my podcast by saying this. We are very, very happy and very, very proud here at Legacy Internet Radio to be able to service you guys, the listeners, for the past year. We look forward to continuing and doing it for years to come. I want to give a special, special thank you to all of the team here at Legacy Internet Radio. Special thank you first goes out to co-founder Big Rube, who opened his home. We did the first show, Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. on March 4, 2013, a Monday night from his house, from his kitchen, where he lived, because we had no place else to be where we left the location that we used to be at. And we started off as a one-show radio station that broadcast from a guy's kitchen to 1 year later. We have our own studio, and we broadcast 6 days a week. We're very proud of that. So I want to thank the entire team at Ain't No Half Steppin' Marcus J, S.Y. Butler, Carlton Banks, J.R., Brandy, Blessed, Toriana, the Dating Pool Diva, Author Charisma, as well as Miss Tony. Special thanks to the team over at Enliven Radio that you can hear every single Tuesday night from 7 to 9. Mr. L.P. Steven Sykes with Mr. Sincere, Miss Brandy. I want to thank the original host of the Green Room, where we started, Mr. Jay Grizzy, along with comedianess Lissa P., who host the Green Room version 2.0 every single Wednesday from 7 to 9 right here on Legacy Internet Radio. Of course, Iron Horse Radio, the newest addition to the crew, can be heard every single Thursday night from 7 to 9. The whole crew, Cinemax, Bam, Goody, Black Seas, Dirk Diggler, the whole crew. Definitely glad to have them part of the team. Of course, Big Rube left me on Monday nights to start his own show, but I'm glad he brought along his brother, Andre. So you've got the sports show Clutch with Big Rube and Dre on Fridays from 7 to 9, along with DJ Renee Melendez with Deep House Sessions on Saturday nights from 7 to 9. I want to give a special thank you to my brother K-Dub, my oldest friend in the world. Anybody that knows me knows I always like to show that brother love, because without him, a lot of the behind-the-scenes conversations would have never come to fruition. So a lot of the things that you see and you hear on Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J, a lot of that comes from my brother K-Dub. Doesn't get a lot of the accolades because he's not here in Richmond with us, but I would be remiss if I did not include him in the love and thank you. So I'll leave it there. I also want to give a special thank you, last thank you here, to the True Fighters. There's a lot of you guys out there that have been listening to us on the strength of listening to the number one True Fighter, Warren Ballantyne. And I want to thank you guys. You guys do a lot of sharing. You do a lot of posting. of putting us out there, and I appreciate that. Special thanks to my sister Melanie, my brother Neil, my brother Mo. You guys hold us down here at Legacy Internet Radio, and I appreciate that. To me, that is the essence of what being a true fighter is all about. Warren always says, you push me and I pull you. You guys been doing a lot of pushing and pulling on behalf of us here at Legacy Internet Radio, and we want to personally thank you guys. So that's it. That's the end of the podcast. I'm going to play a song. I don't know what I'm going to play. I'm going to play a little song here, get you guys kind of revved up, a little break right here. And when we come back, we will have the inaugural show that we did on March 4th, 2013, the original Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio, right from Big Rube's apartment. We appreciate your love. We appreciate your support. I want to remind everybody that independence is key to building your legacy. I also want to let y'all know that in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Those are the words of Bob Marley. I want to say peace to all the stars and all the squares as well. Thanks, everybody, for your love and your support. It's your man, Marcus J. We'll be back next week. Peace. Stay tuned for the replay of the inaugural Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio.